Hey, Sami here. I'm not your typical job counselor. I work remote and I travel the world as I kickstart careers. This is raw, real, and on the road. Hi, I'm Sami Gardner, and this is the Career Kickstart Show. I am super excited to have Alison Cardy, who is the founder and CEO of Cardy Career Coaching. She has her own signature career clarity method, and she teaches that to clients all over the world. She's been featured in magazines and websites like Forbes, Fast Company, Monster, and the Huffington Post. I'm super excited to have Alison on the show today, but that's just the tip of the iceberg on Alison and her career coaching empire. So, Alison, would you just tell me a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Well, Sami, thank you for having me, first of all. And you pretty much hit the nail on the head. Basically, I run a career coaching team, and we specialize in helping people who aren't happy with their career direction, but they're not sure what to do next. So it's kind of like a double whammy because they don't like where they are, but they don't know where they want to go to next. And we use, as you mentioned, a clarity process that really helps people go from confused, lost, overwhelmed, and frustrated to really feeling clear and confident about where they want to be going next with their career.
That is fantastic. I've always found with my clients that it's the career clarity, which is the hardest part. And I'm super excited to have you on today because I am going to thoroughly pick your brain and you are going to share all the details on really what's going on in career advice, how people can, start up leveling their career. For me, it feels like nobody's been taught how to find a job. So everybody's just kind of muddling along. So thank goodness there are people like you that can help folks out. So without further ado, I'm going to begin the brain picking with my first question, which is, what are the two most common types of biased career advice that are both incredibly attractive and unfortunately incredibly flawed?
Sure. So you actually made some really good points before you asked that question, which were the idea that people really haven't necessarily been taught how to find a job or even how to find their own path in the midst of all the different types of career opportunities that we have in kind of the modern world. And I think as a result, there are kind of two flawed types of advice that are really attractive for people to kind of grab onto when they're not sure what to do next. And these two types of advice are actually at opposite ends of like the risk tolerance spectrum. So one type of advice would be to go back to school. That's a path where you feel like, okay, I've been to school before. This is a familiar structure. And what I find is a lot of people who aren't sure what they want to do next, they might kind of get sucked into going for a master's degree or some type of graduate degree, even if they don't know what they're going to use it for, just because that's familiar. And so that kind of feels like a safer option for people to take. And then on the other end is the advice or the marketing around starting a business, which is a fine thing to do, same as school can be a fine thing to do. But I think sometimes people jump into taking on the risk of that without even necessarily wanting what they're going towards, just because it's kind of being marketed to them. So both of these things don't necessarily help you figure out what you really want to be doing. They just offer you something to kind of grab onto in the moment. But what I find is oftentimes people who don't go in with intentionality into either of those paths, they come out the other side feeling just as confused as when they went in.
Oh, that is so true. And they usually come out with way less money than they had before going in. I have seen that so many times on for either of those equations. And I get it. Hiding in school, I mean, I definitely did that. I'm still paying off a library science degree. But it's one of those things where it feels like since it's so safe and people tell you to do it, you should. But it seems like there's still like a critical step that most people are missing when they make these leaps. So what do you think it's the critical step that most people miss when they're trying to fix their unhappiness at work? What are they missing out on?
A natural thing that happens. So when somebody's unhappy in their career path, the first thing that their brain tries to do is to fix it, right? So if you're like, oh, okay, this situation at work or, wherever somebody is in life, it's not working for them. They notice, okay, this has been going on for a little bit more than just like a bad day or a bad week. And when they notice that kind of unhappiness or dissatisfaction, the thing that most people jump to is, okay, what's the solution? So when they jump to that, they might jump straight to job searching. They might jump straight to going back to school. They might jump straight into some type of new business opportunity. But the step that they've missed is they never identified where it was that they actually wanted to be going to. So it's kind of like if there's step 1 is identify a problem, step 3 is find the solution to that problem, step 2 is get clear on what you want, like who you are, what you want, and what you want to get out of your career. And I think people don't really recognize that that step is there. And what happens is it's almost like they throw a dart before even identifying where the dartboard is. So they're just trying to solve the problem, like do something. But you can imagine the difference between just like throwing a dart somewhere as soon as you can and taking a beat to look around and figure out, oh, where is my dartboard? What am I trying to get out of this? What's going to be a great next move for me? And when you do that, it becomes so much easier to hit the dartboard. So that's the step that people miss, is just taking the time to get clear on what they actually want.
That I find to be like my favorite part of any sort of job hunt, or if I'm in like, a new phase of my life, I'm like, sweet, I can do something new. But I've noticed the same thing in my clients where it's almost like pulling teeth to get through that clarity stage. Even when I wrote a curriculum for a tech boot camp, like, the first focus group, like in the middle of the course, were like, oh, there's so many brainstorming questions. But once the job seekers actually went onto the job market, like, and they were, using their brainstorming and their clarity for interview questions, they're like, oh, I get it now. But what is your theory on why people like resist being intentional and strategic when they start job hunting? What's up with that?
I don't know that there's a universal answer there. So there's probably quite a lot of things going on. But in general, what I see with people is they just might not have practice with consciously picking what they want or accepting what they want or even believing that they can get it. So if you think about it, we're talking about careers, but kind of underneath picking a career direction, there's some pretty big like psychological concepts of, hey, I can actually say what I want in life and I can actually go for it and I might actually get it. So when somebody doesn't really have that foundation of believing in those types of things, or perhaps their social environment is in conflict with what they truly want. So maybe other people have told them, you shouldn't want that, or that's not a good path to go down. It can really leave people in a bit of like a floundering state. So I don't know that it's necessarily that people are afraid of doing it. I think it's that it's like a new skill for them, because for many people, the trajectory of their life is go to school, like elementary school and grade school. For some people, go to college, get that first job. And if you think about it, most of that is kind of a set course in front of you. So what I find is people often drift into their first job or even whole career paths without ever having really picked it. So they might be very successful, really capable people, but if their career path isn't in alignment with who they are, that's where the pain point comes in, and that's where they need to develop just some new skills around owning who they are and what they want and believing that they can get it.
You're right. It's really a journey to be like, I can make this possible for myself. And that's where for most people, if you first have like someone's like, what's your choice? You're like filling out a quiz for a guidance counselor. It doesn't feel intuitive. It doesn't feel like you can make those heart decisions. But really what we're really talking about here is talking about people getting past the routine, getting past the the mold, the box that they were put in, and trying to get that hidden truth. So, what do you think, like, when you are working with people on their career clarity, how do you get at that hidden truth? Where do you start, maybe?
Sure. Well, we take a lot of time to actually get to know the person that we're talking to. And that is really the first thing that we come to. And I think that kind of finding out who the person is actually easier than figuring out how to help them translate it into a real world career path and a real world job. So we start with just, getting to know the individual, but then it's helping them to move through that translation piece of, okay, here's who I am, here's what job it matches with, and here's what's coming up for that individual that might be making it harder than normal for them to move forward. And obviously that's why we're coaches. So then we can kind of get in there and help clear the way so that the client can really move forward with confidence and knowing, okay, this is a path that really feels good to me.
And when you have such confidence when you're talking about how you're guiding, people in this clarity process. So in our last question before we kind of round out the interview, how about you, maybe talk a little bit about how you yourself are using some of these clarity concepts to take more ownership of your own life and really why that ownership matters.
Definitely. Well, I think that careers evolve for sure. Sometimes it's not that somebody has drifted into a career path that's not a good fit. It might be something that used to be a really wonderful fit for them is no longer a fit for who they are now and what they're most wanting in life right now. So I think that it's something that we always want to be paying attention to, is just noticing, am I on a path that still feels good, or does something need to change? In my own life, I would say probably the biggest weapon that I have for figuring out my own direction is my attention. So in kind of the hustle and bustle of day-to-day life, it's really easy to just kind of get sucked into tasks or routines or things that you've just been doing for a while that may not be appropriate anymore. So I find having a bit of white space and time to actually pay attention to my life and my work's direction is really important. And then the other thing that I would say that I've learned for myself and also for our clients, I think it's a really healthy thing to get somebody else in your corner who can add their brain to your life and your career. Because naturally, we're all so close to our own personal experience. But when you have somebody who can be a bit of an outside perspective and kind of look at what's going on for you, it can be so life-changing. That's what we provide for our clients. And also that's something that I seek out in my own life and career as well.
I would totally agree with that. I find myself where I don't always do one-on-one work with mentors, but I love working in groups, masterminds, doing those sort of activities, because it's amazing what can happen once you start mixing with people who also have the same goal that you do. That's why I tell all of my peeps when they have their dream figured out, they know they're going for it. It's like, okay, now find your people, go out there, because you're going to make magic once you start working with them. That's what I like to do. I might be a Leo, so I could be biased on that one. Well, Allison, thank you so much for, coming onto my show and just sharing a little bit about clarity and a little bit about yourself too. But before you go, I want to make sure that everyone who's listening can find where you are on the web and just learn a little bit more about you and your Cardy career coaching. So how about you lay it out for us?
Sure. Thanks, Sami. So we are on the web at cardycareercoaching.com. That's Cardy, C-A-R-D-Y, careercoaching.com. And I would say the best thing that I would recommend for people to do if you're resonating with what I'm saying and you're wondering, is it possible to get this figured out? I know kind of on the front end, there can be a lot of doubt of maybe there's something wrong with me or maybe I'm the one that, doesn't have a path. I just recommend you poke around on our site and look at our client stories. You can see that what you're feeling is going around. Lots of people have felt it. And also that it is very possible to get out the other side, particularly when you have some help in your corner.
I would agree with that. I feel like everyone's career can just be transformed the moment that they start working with someone who not only says, I believe in you, but also says, you know how you were confused about all these different things from cover letters to resumes to yada yada? Okay, not only do I got your back, but I also have all the tools. And your website looks fantastic. I suggest everybody check that out. You again, Allison. This has been fantastic to have you on. And thank you all for listening. I'm Sami Gardner, and this is the Career Kickstart Show. Bye. Evolve your career at cool.careerkickstartacademy.com.